Good day, magical beans. There's something that wants to be shared around the fire of passion, purpose, fire energy, fiery energy. Can easily turn to or be expressed, felt as anger, passion. There's so much going on in this world. It's like, where's the productive space of the passion? Because it can easily become so overwhelming that we either turn it inwards or it becomes destructive in some way because it doesn't have an appropriate or an effective outlet. I was chatting to a client the other night about how we feel about what's happening in the world, and we were having the discussion as to what's the effectiveness, what's the usefulness of how we feel about it. Like, what is it adding to? A lot of people, and my family were a little bit like this as well. Like, my mum says to me, "What? So you don't watch the news? Like it's some terrible sin not to constantly keep up with what's happening in the world." But she doesn't really understand that I feel it all. And the details just upset me. I don't need to read it because I can feel it. My empath has always been since a child so strong that it actually becomes counterproductive for me to ingest the details, the information and the visuals. So I've learned over the years what's a good way for me to lean into it and what isn't. So we were talking about how it makes her feel. And I think it makes most people feel these feelings when we get too involved in what's happening outside of us, and it's all negative and it's anti-life. It's people being abused, overpowered, manipulated, watching people in fear, in destitution. I mean, how the fuck is that going to make anybody feel? And when we're in a position where we're blessed to not be in those states, to not have that life at this point, there's like a part of us that feels responsible. But if we think about what responsibility actually is, it's the ability to respond. Do we have the ability to respond, really, to somebody on the other side of the world? Do we really have the ability to respond? No, we don't. If we can't offer practical help, is there any point in having a bleeding heart? What is that going to do? What's it going to do for you? Because I know how it makes me feel. It makes me feel hopeless. And that desperate sadness, right? So then we're in a position where we're put our energy, our personal individual energy is in that fearful, negative state. What we've got to remember is that everything's energy. So regardless of how things look or how convincing the physical world is, everything is energy. It's a fact. It's quantum physics. If you're a scientific person, if you kind of need proof for things, right? It is actually, it's a fact. Everything's in the unseen first. It's a really weird thing to truly wrap your head around when it comes to stuff like this, because unless we really do wrap our head around this, we cannot rise out of the patterns that keep us energetically stuck in fearful negative states that then just feed the darkness that is the problem in the first place. I woke up with so much fire. It's like the mission of standing for what's right, I mean, my God, where do you want to start in this world? And it can very easily become overwhelming for people like us, for people who see the truth, who feel what's right, who stand for what's right. You know, I've been shown for many, many years, I didn't intend to share this, but this is what's coming through. I've been shown for many, many years. It started off right at the beginning of my journey when I started to learn Reiki, go to Reiki shares, do a Reiki course. We did a meditation on my level 1 and 2. And ever since then, on and off through my life, I've seen myself with children. And I was like, no. I thought, is that going to be my grandchildren? Like, I'm not going to do that again. So I didn't really understand it. I couldn't really get my head around it. And then I thought, oh, I don't even really want to work with kids. Like, I love children, but in terms of having the patience to be a teacher, for example, I always thought, nah, not really my cup of tea. Like, I had one child and he was like 10 people at what he was so powerful, and I was like, I could never be one of these women. Like, hats off to women who have like 6 kids. That's beyond my capacity, right? So it never really made a lot of sense. But then over the years, that's 10 years ago, over the years, many, many times I've had these visions. When you tap into, any time you do like a timeline meditation, future visioning, children present, young children. Then about 2 years ago, my partner and I started really tapping into, well, we were just given these kind of almost like screenshots, like a movie clips, whenever we intended to connect to our bigger vision, the vision beyond the vision, asking the questions like, what's my soul here to do? What legacy does my soul want to leave? And I am here. I was told that the end part of that legacy, part of that timeline, is to resource create and hold the space for children, for abused children, children who need love, a spiritual rehabilitation centre for abused or trafficked children. And I was like, what? How? That was the first question. I have now let go of the how. That's not my business and it's irrelevant. But it's so big, it literally took me about a year to wrap my head around. What? Like, I just couldn't get my head around it. And then it sort of started to click in. Oh, yeah, you've always been given these little snippets, and it's always been there. Just because it doesn't make sense to your mind, or you don't know how you're going to achieve that, that's irrelevant right now. So I've integrated that and then just parked it somewhere, because a lot of the time it's this weird thing, isn't it? Anyone who starts to tap into their multidimensionality, who gets bigger visions of life, of themselves, of things, of anything. And a lot of people are dreaming this stuff. A lot of people are reporting all these kind of downloads and activations that they're getting, things that they're seeing. It's part of our unique spiritual path to work out how our vision is shown to us. So in other words, in any one meditation or time space, time frame, we could see several different timelines operating. We might even be seeing past, present, we're seeing past, present, future all at once. And then sometimes the mind, the ego, wants to pull it all into the now. And I know that my partner and I have both gone through a phase, especially him, because the masculine vision is often very projectile. It's like straight into the future. It's vertical. It's the end result. It's that very catastrophic, big picture kind of connection in terms of vision. And I know that many times, especially at the beginning of his journey, when he wasn't so experienced, didn't know himself so much, he was like, oh, that's now, it's now, I've got to make it happen now. When actually he might have been seeing a timeline 4 years in the future, or 100 years in the whatever. It's not now. But because when we start to tap into multidimensionality, we're shown a lot of things in the now moment, and we think, oh my God, like I've got to do something about it now. So this is part of our journey to work all that out and to realize that not everything is for now. And to just kind of park it, if that makes sense, and just, you know, it's there, but I don't have to do anything now. Actually, it's moreover just allowing it and receiving the codes that are there and the notification that it's there. So I've managed to do that now with all this stuff. And the deeper that I get on a very organic, personal priestess path, essentially, which is part of the rose medicine. It's the rose frequency. It's the organic connection to the feminine Christ, to Sophia. So the priestess path is harmlessness and protection of children. That's what it is. That's what it stands for. That's the energy of it on this planet. So I know all of this. It's all there. It's all present. But it's not in my now moment. I don't work with children now. It's not. I know it's in my template, and I know it's what is coming in and where I'm moving towards, but I don't know how and what and all the rest of it. So clearing the mind out of the way there. Let's sit for a moment with that energy of protection of children. Now, all of the good people on this planet, the decent people who bring their children up without abusing them, will have a fire and a passion in their heart and will appreciate. And some people, whether we've been abused ourselves or not, that doesn't necessarily mean anything when it comes to how we then treat other people. Some people who've been terribly treated by their own family go on to do the same thing because they can't break the pattern. Other people who've been terribly abused by their own family, like my partner, go on to break the chain, smash it to fucking pieces, and somewhere from inside of them, they manage to source this beautiful strength, forgiveness and compassion that they have never been shown. How he would be, you know, that it's another story when we then come to be a parent ourselves, because that, for anyone who's become a parent, there are things that your own children bring up within you that you never even knew were there sometimes. So that's another journey for him that he may or may not embark on his own soul's path and choice. But what he's managed to achieve up until now as an adult, as a man, as a human being, is an incredible amount of surrender, forgiveness and compassion, considering what he's been through, which he's perfectly vocal and about himself. And that's always struck me as absolutely incredible. Like, it's always fascinated me how there are some people who turn their trauma to gold. They use it as fuel. They're like, do you know what? Because I know what that feels like, I would never inflict that on another person. And then there are other people who just stay in that space and don't seem to be able to pull themselves out of it and use it as fuel. It's always really fascinated me. And I guess, who knows why that is? Is it a predetermined choice for karmic lessons to learn? Who knows? But what I do know is I have always had a fire in me, a determination of knowledge, a really steely focus and internal compass, if you like, for what is right. My divine masculine's really, really strong. All my life I have leapt into action if I've seen a woman or a child being abused, and it's happened multiple times in my life. It's not a coincidence. one, two, three different addresses that I've lived at. Four different addresses that I've lived at. I've ended up living next door, beneath or whatever, or someone's done it outside my house. They've abused a child, an animal, or a woman, and I have literally just come out of nowhere and protected. And every time it works, because people are so shocked, the men that are doing it are so shocked to be challenged that they just crumble and run away like the fucking coward that they are. So this has been a theme in my life. I'm a protector. I hold codes of protection in my template. I am here to protect. I have a very fierce, loving, divine mother protection energy in my field, and that has been utilized and called for many, many times in my life. And it's like, it's always been that, like, well, what am I supposed to do with this? And to be honest, I still don't have the answer to that question fully, but I know that my life, my purpose, and I am guided by God. I am protected and guided by spirit. Even today, a whole series of events just showed me that. Everything shows me that nearly every day. It makes me really emotional because it humbles me every single time when spirit shows me, the universe shows me how protected and guided I am. I'm absolutely so grateful. And it's taken me to this point in my life, I'm 50 years old, to start to be able to see how this is going to be utilized in this world. And I guess this is what this is here, and this is how it relates, because everyone who receives me, everyone who receives you, everyone that we exchange with and we hear and take in, there's no coincidences. It's all divine. And I'm a mirror, you're a mirror for others. Like, when we see parts of ourselves in another person. Every single person who's on an awakening path, who's expanding their consciousness, is expanding into more of themselves. And the fact is, what this world requires, needs, and is calling for and calling out, drawing out of all of us, is our purpose. Somewhere in our unique frequency are the codes that this world needs. It's either what the old world needs to soothe and to assist the dismantling, and or it's what the new world needs to anchor the template for the new, to go forth and carry forward that blueprint of strength and what is right. Have you always had within you an innate sense of what's right and wrong? Have you always been the one in the room to stand up and defend somebody, or stop somebody from not necessarily abusing, but taking the piss out of someone else, someone vulnerable? Have you always been the one to be able to spot the glitch in the system that isn't fair? Has it always bothered you when things are not fair and not right and not just? Because there's a reason for that. If we're fired up in this way, it's not to make us suffer. If things make us angry, injustice, it's showing us that justice is a core value. What are our core values? What do we stand for in this world? Because everything that riles us up, sometimes we can look at it in a very physical way and think, why? What's the purpose? Like me this morning, a rush of fire through. Like, I noticed how it has the effect on the personality construct of wanting to pull into an expression of anger. It wants to pull us into that energy. How do we be something in its pure form. In other words, how do we receive something for the message that it's trying to give us without becoming that energy? How do we stand against something without engaging in the thing itself? It's a really tricky dynamic that a lot of us are learning as we go along. People are consumed by anger because they're not aware that the anger itself is a messenger. What anger taught me is everywhere that I have a burning fire for justice and it's missing in this world, so it's going to make me angry. It's going to have that reaction. A lot of us humans have been suppressed. Anger suppressed, as if we're not entire, as if there's no righteous anger. There is righteous anger, because how could there not be with so much deceit, falsity and cruelty in this world? How would anybody with a decent, honest heart not be angered by the cruelty in this world? So if you're feeling a lot of intense energy that's manifesting as something that is really uncomfortable for you, intense anger, it's like, what the hell do we do with this? And we're not really taught how to healthily release it either. So then we just have it churning around our body all the time. It's imperative that we understand the message that intense emotions are trying to bring to us. Intense emotions, reactions, I guess, in that way, are an indicator of a value that is not being honoured. A value that we hold, a standard that we hold, that is not being honoured. If that's in our personal life, it's up to us to stand up for ourselves, to boundary, to respect and have dignity and recognise what it is that we actually value, and create our life, put our boundaries in place so that we do not allow another individual person to cross over that, so that we are standing for, embodying the frequency of whatever the value is. If it's something in the external, yes, the only way to work with that is to use it as fuel. How can I take what I feel about the injustice and everything that's not fair and the cruelty, and put that into my work, direct it into my work and into my intention for the impact that I wish to have in this world? Because if I don't do that, I'm just becoming part of the problem. I'm just adding to the same energy that's chaotic in this world. In the same way that if we're just pulled out all the time by everybody's sorrow and misfortune, we're just a bleeding heart, which a pity energy is very, very dysfunctional. It actually does nothing useful. If you really genuinely feel empathic or, feel for somebody's cause, do you have the actual physical ability to respond to it in a practical, helpful way? Because people feel like they're carrying this big burden of responsibility around all the time, like, oh, as a human being, if I turn the news off and just concentrate on myself being happy, that's somehow like irresponsible to the world problems. No. Think about the definition of responsibility. It's the ability to respond. Do we have the ability to respond to people on the other side of the world? Maybe, if we can find a genuine, authentic way to get them some physical support, or you want to fly out there and help them yourself with your own hands. Fantastic. What an angel. If you don't have the ability to do that, the best thing to do is pray. Because prayer is an absolutely miraculous when it comes directly from the heart, and it's a very centered, genuine, intentional process. It actually has more impact than anything. And then let yourself be happy, because if we are radiating a frequency from our heart because we feel so disempowered by it, because we're allowing the hopelessness, the bleakness, the darkness to get into our heart, and then we feel hopeless and useless and depressed. That's what frequency we're radiating out to the world. That isn't helpful. That's not loving, and it's not productive. So really, can we get a grip of this sense, this false sense of responsibility to anything other than our own happiness and energetic field? The only thing we can control is our own energy, our own field. That's it. There's nothing else that's controllable in this world. But it can be a really can I give myself permission to turn off this noise, to tune out and turn off the noise, the constant barrage of negativity, fear and destruction and cruelty, and just concentrate on nurturing and nourishing our own body, our own needs, and being a good person who lives by the compass of their heart. If everybody did that, there wouldn't be any child abuse. I don't know what the stats are in this country, and I'm almost afraid to look. But it baffles me how it's so pushed to one side. If we really think about, I don't know what it is, I think it's 30-something%, nearly 40% of children in this country, it's probably more because that's only the reported, 40% of children in the UK have been sexually abused. So if you look at every street, then half, at least, that's probably a minimal number. Half of the households, half of the people that we go hi to. Hi. It's an eye-opener in the deepest possible way when we start to reflect upon how we're going to have the effect in this world that will genuinely protect children, that will truly protect children. Because the government aren't protecting children. They're allowing, first of all, they've never, ever shown me all my life, even long before I was conscious, it never made any sense to me how people who stole money had a longer prison term than a paedophile. It just doesn't make any sense to me. But obviously it does now, because I know that the government, the powers, the system, the structure abuses children. It farms children. This is really dark for a lot of people to wrap their head around, and this is part of the problem. It's the refusal to look at things for what they are, which allows it to continue. The longer we go, oh, no, I can't think about it, I can't talk about it, it's unpalatable. Well, it's a lot more unpalatable for the children that are suffering. So kind of done pretending that things don't exist. Pretense is old, it's done, it's so icky. We've talked about it in the sense of the own individual way that we can wear masks, play roles, have all these identities in life. And the people pleasing, the pretending, all of this stuff, it upholds all of these systems that keep this facade rolling on and running. And really, to me, this whole concept of turning a blind eye, when we think about all the well-reported things over the years, like Jimmy Savile, the amount of people or things that come out afterwards where it's people knew but they didn't act. That's just as bad as doing it. quite frankly. Energetically, people who uphold that type of thing, that structure, by denying it, being in denial, it's condoning that behavior by being in denial, by pretending it doesn't exist, by turning a blind eye, turning the other cheek. We can no longer go on allowing darkness to stay and to thrive in the shadows, because all of this dark, icky stuff exists in the shadow. It hides in the darkness, but it hides in plain sight. But it wouldn't be able to do that if strong, clear seers, vision people, like if you see it, you got to call it out. You got to call it out. I don't know why I'm talking about this now. Maybe there's somebody out there who is really wrestling with some type of decision about how to approach something. And, you know, it is something that we need to sit with, in the sense that we come into the heart with the question. As a responsible, aware, conscious, heart-led human who wishes to stand for what is right and true in this world, how do I go about this? How do I share my voice? How do I act, behave in a way that cuts through the bullshit, in a way that steers clear of actually engaging with that energy in any type of dynamic, and literally just calls it out? We're all learning how to be new. We're all learning how to show up differently. We're all learning how to be the person that we truly know ourselves to be, and we've never had the courage to fully speak that voice. We're all learning how to be the badasses, the super conscious, next level human. And that is a human that is transparent. There's nothing hidden in the surface. There's nowhere for the shadow to operate, no way for it to still exist. And that's the whole point of the transparency. The devil's in the detail. There can be no darkness with the light fully turned on, right? It's not a space that supports this underbelly of icky, disgusting, shameful behavior. The only way is to come into the heart and to come into prayer, come into the core of the truth of who we are. And really operate from that space daily. If we practice over and over again, operating from the space of the heart, from the space of honesty, transparency, in every way in our life, every small way, then we start to have conversations differently. We start to feel more connected to the ability to speak from that space. We start to be able to see a lot clearer as well, and not feel like we are separate from it. When we feel like we're separate from things, it's very easy to turn a blind eye. Well, it's nothing to do with me. That mentality is so false and so old. There's nothing separate from us. We're all energetically entwined, in the sense that we all exist in this massive field. You know, the feeling, the concept, the reality of separation is it's false. It's an implant. It's what's been put in to have that effect, so that people separate themselves from what matters and just concentrate there, and then look out at the world, and the result of that is feeling disempowered, thinking that something's so big and beyond you because it's separate that there's actually nothing you can do about it. That's the biggest lie of all. When you separate humans and that construct, the false construct of separation, then people do think that there's nothing that they can do. They see something and think, well, you know, how am I going to affect that? It makes people feel small, disempowered, weak, useless, ineffective. And then that's how they feel about themselves. And then they never even bother to try, never even bother to step forward or believe that they can have a real change in this world. One person can change this world. And we know this because look at people, Martin Luther King, look at people in our living memory or the last 100 years that we can look at and say, wow, just through your strength of character, your focus, your determination, that is superhuman, but it's not that unusual. It's not out of reach. It's just a pure focus and self-belief and determination. Some people have that fire and that level of ability, and they're extraordinary because they're way showers, but they show all of us that that's possible. Don't underestimate your power to change a situation for the better. Don't underestimate the power of your voice when it comes from your heart and your ability to literally fry that dark, negative, horrible energy. It fries in your light. It literally withers under your gaze in the frequency of your heart and your words and your actions. It just can't survive. Have the courage to be who you truly are, because this world desperately needs that truth and light. I love you so much. Thank you for being here.